how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast, where we talk with musicians about songwriting and the creative process. My name is Mike. My guest for this episode is Ryan Anderson from the Louisville, Kentucky-based band Bendigo Fletcher. This was a fun one. I was down in Austin, Texas for the South by Southwest Music Conference a few weeks ago. Always one of my favorite music events of the year. Saw a lot of great music, met some interesting folks. Among other highlights, I saw the band Yard Act, a British kind of post-punk band. Saw them in a tiny bar near the University of Texas campus. And what they said was their first ever U.S. show. They were really great. We haven't heard the last of them, that's for sure. Saw a great young band from New York City called Geese. At least some of the members looked way too young to be legally in the venues they were playing. An excellent guitar-based band. But I also had a great time seeing an act called Snapped Ankles. They were part tight synth and guitar music band. I was reminded of Devo, but also a part performance artist. The backstory they tell is that they are descended from trees. They performed in costumes, tough to describe, but certainly tree-inspired. Take a look online. Their mic stands were tree branches that somehow were also synthesizers or something. Super fun and great tunes. This to me is one of the great joys of South by Southwest, the discovery of live shows by bands I would probably not come across anywhere else, outside my usual musical comfort zones, but so entertaining and refreshing. So this episode was recorded in the upstairs of the little Airbnb house we had rented. You can hear the birds chirping outside in the wonderful Austin spring sunshine. You also might hear the members of the band Buffalo Rose shuffling around downstairs. That's our daughter Lucy's band, who we're showcasing artists this year. So that made it a lot of fun for us this year as well. So let's talk about the band Bendigo Fletcher and my guest Ryan Anderson. This is their first full-length album. Their previous EPs were great collections, mostly in the folk, rock, and bluegrass-sounding lanes. For this record, they were lucky enough to work with producer Ken Coomer. Ken was a member of the legendary band Uncle Tupelo with Jeff Tweedy and Jay Farrar, and then Wilco, playing on a number of their amazing records. He's gone on to work with Emmylou Harris, Steve Earle, among many others. Working with Ken, Bendigo Fletcher was able to produce some amazing soundscapes on this record. It is so exciting to hear how these songs are progressions from their previous work. We hear Ryan talk about what a great experience it was working with Ken creating these songs. This is a record that bears repeated listens. I've been hooked on it for a couple weeks now and keep finding things I love. It actually reminds me of the great Wilco records in that way. I cannot say enough about how much I enjoyed this conversation with Ryan. I was lucky enough to land a ticket to the Luck Reunion, the event Willie Nelson and family put on each year during South by Southwest at Willie's Ranch about 30 miles outside Austin. They bring together 20 or 25 of the top acts that are in town for a really fun day. So I got to see Bendigo Fletcher play there. They were an awesome band, great musicians, and Ryan is a compelling, entertaining, attention-getting, and of course talented frontman. He had a large crowd, many of whom were not previously familiar with their music, fully taken in by his band's set. So the next day I got to meet Ryan, and here was this modest, sincere, soft-spoken, a bit shy, but genuinely nice, witty, and certainly thoughtful person. We had a great conversation that I think you will enjoy listening to. Quick shout out to Will Harvey for putting this conversation together, really made it smooth and easy. And a personal shout out to my old pal Johnny Capp, my occasional musical partner in crime, who shares in the joy of discovery with me and makes it a lot more fun. So let's get to it. Here's our Tell You What discussion with Ryan Anderson from Bendigo Fletcher. All right, Ryan Anderson, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. We're here in the Tell You What Studios, satellite Epiplex, overlooking downtown Austin. Pretty sweet, isn't it?
Primo location.
Yes. Opulent, would you say?
Yes. 360 degrees all around opulence.
I was looking, I realized we're kind of a between two ferns vibe going, those videos?
Yeah. Between the more tropical display here.
We'll try and keep it a little more on track than those videos go.
We can talk plants. That's fine.
But welcome to South by Southwest. I happened to see you and your band, Bendigo Fletcher, play yesterday at the Luck Reunion at Willie Nelson's ranch.
Yes.
That must have been pretty cool.
It's very cool to see the farm. I was seeing a lot of artists who I am a big fan of, so I was just trying to be cool. And no, it was easy to be cool. Everyone was relaxed, and such a cool setup for a festival, I think. Like, it was a little saloon town.
Yeah.
The little church building.
Jail.
Yeah, a revival tent.
Right.
Yep.
If Willie's vibe seemed to be permeating the proceedings there too, I felt like that.
Did you get to catch his set?
I didn't. That was a little too late for my old bones.
I understand.
Yeah.
We had to get out of there around like 5 to go to another gig.
Yeah. There was a shuttle at 8 and a shuttle at 12, and I was like, if I miss that 8 o'clock shuttle, that's going to be a long day for me.
Dragging yourself home.
All right, so your record, Bendigo Fletcher's record, Fits of Laughter, has been out now for a bit. You've been touring it a fair amount. How would you say, if it has, your relationships to these songs has changed now that you've been out there playing them in the world? Did the stories kind of change for you over time?
Not so much the stories. I guess, like, it's really cool to discover that they've resonated with someone, Maybe someone's singing the words, which is awesome, or even, like, after the show in a city that's hundreds of miles away, someone tells you that, they've listened to and connected to your songs.
Yeah.
That they've changed in that way, and that maybe I've grown to appreciate them even more in that way.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to back up a bit if we can. We're going to take you back in time. If we can talk about your youth, musical memories, things maybe you remember from your home or community that perhaps influences what you're creating now.
Yeah. I just think back to my first music teacher. Her name was Ruth. And she discovered pretty early on that I wasn't going to easily pick up reading music, or wasn't maybe too ADD or whatever to like be interested in keeping eyes on the page. And
yeah,
she worked with my kind of natural approach to music and just let me learn this Beatles songbook by memory.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So each person has a unique way of understanding how they make music or interpret it, and it should be free form. If you can read it and play it, that's icing on the cake and wonderful. But it's just fine too if you're hearing it and can try to replicate, and maybe that leads you to your own creation, which is
right. So was working with Ruth the first time you were playing music yourself?
Yeah.
So what was the instrument in question?
Grade. It was like second grade piano lessons. Yeah.
And did you stick with it?
For about 2 years.
Yeah.
And then played so many sports. I was kind of more interested in being up and moving around at that age, I guess. Then 8th grade came along and I moved to a Catholic school. I got to this school where there's a church band, and like my friends are bringing their guitars to school and taking them out during lunch breaks. And I'm like, oh, of course, like I want to do that, be a part of that. So that kind of led me to
that was the guitar.
Yeah.
And then that was it. Yep. You stuck with that.
And my dad had a guitar in the house, all my life pretty much. But so it's always been like within reach, but I didn't really embrace music as I love it now. Didn't really embrace that until a little bit older.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you start to sing with the guitar?
With the guitar, or pretty much right away.
Yeah, so that was part of it.
Because I've been singing, I love to sing. My sister would get me to sing on the bus in front of her friends and stuff.
Okay.
I was just singing all the time.
Yeah.
No one had told me to shut up.
But no singing lessons or choir or anything like that?
No, just the parrot, mimicry.
Yeah.
Radio mimicry, I guess.
So when did you started to talk about when you became more passionate about creating music? So when did like songwriting become a thing for you?
Really right in step with the guitar.
So high school, you started writing songs?
Yeah, about 8th grade or high school.
Wow.
Time. Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like this was something that was waiting, the guitar was waiting for you to pick it up and start writing songs, and stuff just started bursting out of you?
Pretty much. I mean, I felt like right on time. I guess I hadn't been like waiting for it, but sometimes with words and speaking, like expressing myself, you know, I wouldn't say I was like deficient in that as a young kid, but definitely was on the reserve side, or if not, like being totally wild and outlandish in front of my friends and showing off. So I knew I was a performer, and I knew that I had like weird ideas.
Yeah.
So maybe the guitar kind of was
allowed that to happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So were you performing in high school then?
Yeah, I made a band like right away.
When you were performing original songs then in high school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any of those songs survive?
No. Well, no, not to be performed today. No. But I have some files somewhere.
Yeah. We won't dig them out today.
Yeah, please. Please do.
So were there any other creative outlets for you along the way? Writing, poetry, things like that, away from songwriting?
Yeah, I kind of took an interest in poetry and liked playing with words and rhythms of words and how words go together, and to make something to bop your head to, or I guess music was the first like real expressive endeavor.
Let's talk about your relationship to a creative life, a creative lifestyle, the push and the pull of it. I read that medical school was maybe on the table for you for some period of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what has it been like for you as you have decided to pursue music making as a vocation?
Yeah, I think it was more of like coming to just being honest with myself. So if anything, it's just been a relief to live honestly now. Doesn't feel like I miss anything or wish I had gone a different way. I've just am feeling really lucky to have found some friends to do this with, and for our goal to be traveling together and playing music for people. That's.
Well, I saw you perform yesterday. I'm listening to your music. I think you made the right decision. I think the world is grateful that this is what you decided to do.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm going to get deep for a second. I might be going off base here. The song Sugar in the Creek, song about living off the grid, right? I think I've read you talk about that. I kind of maybe hear it as a metaphor for this choice you've made for living the creative life. Maybe there's something to that.
Yeah. I think it's like a jumping off of the deep end story, I guess, of like turning something you've idealized into a tangible way to live. Yeah.
And the risks involved in doing that, right?
Yeah. And having fun and admitting that you're not going to know what you're doing right away. Yeah. There's just no way until you kind of live like the happy idiot for a while. Like it's part of the process if you want to do anything new.
Well, I've never owned a pistol, but if my neighbors are cooking up the crystal, suddenly I don't feel so tough. And it's all for nothing. I've got more salt than water in the pot, as if my blood pressure ain't high enough. Well, it's all sugar in the creek, my lover. We dissolve at the confluence, making motion, study our devotion.
Let's talk about creative process for a bit, if we can. Can you talk about your songwriting process? If there is it probably is not a standard format you use, but are you generally sitting with a guitar? Do you have a regular practice where you try to sit down every day, or are you working when you get an inspiration, or how are some of these songs coming about?
Man, yeah, whenever I'm asked this question, it's like I just start to beat myself up for my lack of what I think should be discipline. But I guess I'm just lucky. Like, I think the hard work is more of like a mental commitment to being open. And if you're not interested in the moment in making the art, it's not going to happen. And sometimes that's the biggest like hill, like sitting down and like delving into your thoughts, and that takes a lot of energy sometimes. So I guess I try to sort of like made an understanding with myself at this point. Like, I love writing songs, and if I want that to continue, my best tool is a healthy mind and balanced mind. Like, I was talking about earlier, loved all kinds of sports at one point. So there's, and my body needs a certain amount of like physical release of some point in order for my brain to be free. It's this constant like quest for balance. And I think when that balance is like struck, and I never know when it is or isn't, of course, but like that's when song ideas tend to trickle through. And that's when I'm like, just as a person, maybe feeling the song inspirations a little more clearly and honestly. Yeah.
So let's follow that thread for a second. Do you have or had a day job landscaping? I think I read.
Currently.
Right? You do? Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard some writers say ideas come to them when they are driving, walking, keeping their brain quiet. So do you find that doing something like landscaping work allows some ideas to come up?
Absolutely, yeah. I think yes and no. Like, it just depends on the working environment. Like, I think I wrote more when I was in the grocery store because I was a little more like solitude, like on my own.
Okay.
Whereas landscaping, you have to be communicating quite often. If you're like building retaining walls and stuff, like, kind of have to be part of the crew. Right. Oh, okay. Which makes it.
So you're not out like pushing a lawnmower for 3 hours.
Those are the days when maybe I can dream a little bit more. But yeah, it's a balance, and certain jobs, I guess, open me up for that.
I have a quote from the song Sugar in the Creek that we just talked about. Find your quiet mind, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of goes to what you're talking about.
Yeah. You got it. You hit it on the head. I mean, sometimes,
should we stop now?
No, I think we're good. The phrase idle hands makes for,
idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Okay, that sounds a little more Catholic.
I had 12 years of Catholic school myself, so there's another one, idle hands something.
So working hands, I guess, in this conversation is good for the brain.
Yeah. So how do you know when you have something good when you're working on a song? Are you playing it for others? Are you trusting your instincts? Are things being left behind?
All those things and usually in a certain order. Like, instincts, I think when you're writing a song and I'll speak for myself. Like, when I'm working on a song, I'm usually like playing it over and over throughout the course of days until I feel like it's in a cool place, and throughout replaying it, in my bedroom or whatever, you have to face those words every time and like feel them.
Yes.
And if they're not honest, or they're not doing anything for this, if they're not like moving the storyline or not resonating each time, like there's a level of excitement there each time when you know that the words are satisfactory to.
Are you recording a lot of what you're doing, even in the early stages?
Typically, yeah. I mean, I've kind of fluctuated. Obviously, the last 2 years, we talked about balance a lot before. In the last 2 years, I've kind of like probably shaken that for everyone.
Yes.
new degree of balance and my habits kind of with recording, and have kind of, been shaken a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
And, but yeah, typically it's, like I said earlier, it's like being committed to the song and committed to writing. I think recording is like recording those early ideas that keeps it fun, and you can archive those ideas and work on them years later.
Yeah. So
But
do you find that happens?
If you don't do that.
Yeah, you think you're going to remember it, right?
Right.
But do you find that happens sometimes where you have a piece of something from before and you match it up with something that you've got now and it becomes something?
Yeah, I think that's a cool, like, metaphor for, like, things you learn throughout life, too. Like,
Yeah.
you have two ideas that weren't related to begin with, and then making connections down the road, maybe that adds a whole layer of significance. And, like, musically, too, sometimes when you have different rhythmic sections that you can put together, it's a fun way to treat songwriting as sort of like a puzzle piece.
Yeah. We're going to get into that a little bit about how you bring different musical sounds together in the same song. But I want to ask you, the natural world seems to have a strong presence in your music and the lyrics. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I've always just been very moved or like relieved or comfortable in noticing nature and the moon and clouds, and trying to learn plant names. And when I'm in that frame of mind and can appreciate nature, it tethers me to like a better version of myself, I guess. And,
Yeah.
I'm able to give more in my relationships. Like, I think it's the same way. I'm able to give more to writing songs, perhaps, too.
Right.
So the natural world is a major presence in all of music, really. I think the music that I tend towards as a listener and appreciate, like, there's a certain gel with the band. Like, I'm thinking of the band Big Thief.
Yeah, sure.
They seem to have just found this alchemy together that it feels like nature. Like, it's
The relationship between the band members, you're saying.
band members, the songwriting, and the singing, and I'm such a big fan. So it's like I kind of get transfixed on when a piece of art or music, in this case, it feels so natural to the soul's kind of.
That's interesting. So you're kind of saying that the band and the music production is literally like part of the natural world, and the
I think
order of that.
Great music kind of does that for me. Like,
Yeah.
I would put it in the same
So that's
category.
maybe your model for your band and what you are trying to create.
No, I mean, it was such a high mark to hit.
Yeah.
And I think if you probably can't think about it too much in order for it to work. It's just that, again, back to like trying to be open and letting energy through as much as possible rather than trying to control.
Okay, we're going to talk about this great album you released recently, Fits of Laughter. You worked with Ken Coomer on this, right? I'm old enough to remember Uncle Tupelo.
Oh, me too.
And I'm from Chicago, so big fan there.
Yeah, me too.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this was a good idea. I've heard the album. It must have been a real treat to work with him.
I can't quite articulate how much of a treat it was, and is. We're good friends now, and I think a soulmate is not limited to romantic relationships.
Okay.
I'm so lucky to have met Ken because he's a good example of appreciating what comes your way and working with the natural flow of what's in the room. What sound do we need next? Who has an idea here? Like, it's a very open room working with him. And our band benefited from that presence in that, kudos to bands that produce their own stuff. Like, I think we'll get there at some point. But I think I would rather, like, spend some time learning first before we...
People like that particularly.
Oh, yeah, like... Ken's such a good example of working as a team and his penchant for finding tones and knowing what's going to make the songs pop.
Yeah.
Really grateful to have worked with him.
So aside from the production and the arrangements on this album being a bit of a departure for you from your previous music, more trippy sounds, bigger productions maybe than your previous recordings, do you feel the writing of these songs was different? Was it a different process, maybe different subject matter than you'd been writing about previously?
Yeah. Like I think of a song like Donkey Boy Blues. I think I was like having empathy for myself as a child.
Okay.
When that song came out. And like, it's not something I think about every day. That song was just kind of born out of a moment of bored nostalgia, I guess. And I'm really grateful that it was born. And anyway, that's an example of kind of like how some of the subject matter is, I couldn't have predicted that I would have been writing about it.
Would you say it's more personal than you wrote about in the past? Is that maybe the change?
Yeah, I think I took some risks.
Yeah, that's a pretty risky move, right?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast. Man, I forget what the podcast is called, but they essentially, it puts two thinkers in the same, like, two artists together, and they just talk to each other. This one was Connor Oberst and Matt Berninger. So the National and the Bright Eyes lead guys. And one of the things I took Talk House,
yes.
yeah. Yep, you maybe have heard that.
It's a good one, yes.
Yes. And I think I hear it all the time in my head after having listened to that. It's like, if it doesn't feel a little bit risky, I mean, a fun pop song is one thing,
right,
or whatever. Like mountains can be moved with a good melody and a dancey rhythm in pop songs, but like something personal, if it doesn't feel a little bit risky and you're not a little bit insecure, it's usually a good sign.
It's a good sign, yeah.
And that's why you sing your songs for people before you release them in most cases, because if there is something that is it's a way to workshop those really personal ideas that maybe can be sometimes backed off from to make it
you are a judge of that yourself, maybe, right? And you need to bounce that off someone else. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if there's, sometimes opinions leak through some of the early stages of the song that, it's a tough world right now. And there are some strong and also like askew opinions that we go through in order to get to our sound opinions, perhaps. Yeah. And some of those jagged edges can be
left behind. Yeah,
it can be left behind or rounded off to say the same sentiment with not as extreme language or something like that.
Interesting.
So anyway, insecurity and taking risks, like I think that's something I'm embracing a little more, and maybe on this album.
Okay. Well, let's get personal.
All right.
I want to talk about the song Retail Lord.
Yeah.
I love hearing and talking about people's interesting and weird dreams. I'm always fascinated by this. This song, you say, I had a dream. I want to hear about this, sword fights and all. Mm-hmm. Tell us the story of this song.
All right. Sometimes I have dreams about, like, some of my favorite musicians, and it happens. Inspirations, I guess, like, are in my head and will manifest in dreams. And in this one, I haven't decided if it's weird to like name this person or not, but anyway, one of my favorite bands they're called Saint Seneca.
Yes.
And so the lead singer and I were like sword fighting to the death in a department store.
This is your dream, just to be clear.
I can see like an almost like Wes Anderson, very balanced shot of it.
And
like
you're sword fighting.
And on the intercom was one of their songs, like in the store.
Yes.
So I was working at a grocery store at this time, and
what was the song?
Happy Alone.
Okay.
And I got to be honest, like I think there's some rhythmic like similarities between the song that came out of this dream.
Okay. I think
And
they would approve.
I'm grateful for that too. That's the way it works.
Yeah. So you're sword fighting.
We're sword fighting, and how in dreams something is implied, and not necessarily like portrayed by whatever image you're seeing. Just like a really strong feeling, like I have to get out of here, or whatever. Someone's behind the door. Like, how would you know that? But it's a dream. But so you know it. So the sword fights end. I knew this whole time in the dream would be whoever dies is free of this retail job. So like, in killing one another, you would be doing a favor. Like,
yes.
And so it's kind of like the first verse.
Yes.
And then, I kind of turned those strong feelings into a love song, like later on into the song. Just in thinking about my partner and now wife, Annie.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So the latter half of the song, that's part of it. I would say that the romance is a small part of the song still. Like it's kind of just like a gratitude letter to nature and love in general.
Great music.
Yeah, exactly.
I dreamed we worked in a department store together in 1987. In the middle of an aisle, we were dueling swords for the title of immaculate retail lord. From the back of house to the blood on the floor, my left ear was up against your lips as you pinned me back into a rack of padded shoulders. You whispered as the lights went out, be free forever, baby, your shift is over. No, if there was ever such a feckless thing as 9 in the afternoon, still I might.
So you seem to employ, for lack of a better term, the element of surprise, as I like to see it in some of your songs and your performances, like I saw yesterday. Songs go surprising places, tempos change. In your live set, there was like a wonderful loud roar at the end of the dog song that, took the crowd by surprise at first, but drew them in, right? So is this something you think about, capturing attention with the unexpected?
Yeah, like there's little moments of, galvanization that can bring attention, and that feels like a tricky way to, like a almost conniving way to write. But I'm definitely thinking about, like, as the band has grown and gotten more serious about playing with each other and making time for that, you start to think about your impact, and by that I just mean presence in a room, and like what can peaks and valleys that can happen during a live show.
Yes.
Like sometimes I think about that in writing more times than others.
Yeah, because it's both, right? It's in the writing of the song, but also in the live performance. And you're talking about taking it from the live performance and thinking about it in the creation process.
Yeah, and when things go well, like the instincts when you're writing will just make that happen anyway.
Yes, it doesn't have to be contrived.
Yeah, but perhaps there are moments like we need to get big here and we need to add more symbols or whatever.
Well, let's talk about the song Evergreen, because I think this is a good example of some of that, right?
Yeah.
What can we say about the song? It is Wild is the song that first grabbed my attention. I think a lot of other people's too on this record. It really jumps out. We are taken on a wild journey with this song. I think I read this song has been around for a while, right? It was maybe in your live repertoire before. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about this song's journey? Why now and not before? And maybe in the context also of the journey within the song and how those different parts come together and how that happened.
Yeah. We had recorded this before, like a different version of what was eventually released. And I guess didn't quite nail it to our standards, I guess, It has a certain bigness to it that in our recording journey, I guess I should just give credit to working with Ken Coomer here, because it just needed to be tracked and recorded in the right way, and someone to feel the tempo with us and say, oh, that's the tempo that makes me like love the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that it might have been like, it's more produced. It has, we put some resources into it.
Yes.
I'll just say. And I think it benefited from that.
Yeah.
From having had the time to marinate and just trying to find what felt natural. And the more we played it took some years, but the more we played it, we were able to, I think, find something that's fun to play over and over.
I would say your instincts were correct, obviously, in not releasing what you had recorded before. You knew its moment wasn't there, right? And and what you ended up producing, you can call it a lot of studio time or whatever, but I saw you play it live yesterday. It worked in the live setting, so it wasn't magic behind the board that made this song. You guys can make it happen.
I woke up and I pressed my lips to a cup full of comfort, wrapped in the bliss of a golden shroud. Gone for a walk in the evergreen, talking the worry I carried, I lay buried in the frozen ground. And I do believe I'm coming round again. When I don't think of anybody other than myself, I don't think of anybody other than myself. I don't think of anybody other than myself. I met a beggar in the dip of a lifelong trip. We cried together in the underground tether of a tide goodbye.
This song leads me to a question about using your voice, how you use your voice as an instrument. You've got an amazing voice. The range is fascinating, frankly, to listen to. So can you talk about how you think about using your voice from a creative perspective? Does it enter into the creative process, songwriting, these interesting places you go vocally?
I think for me, the melody and how a song feels to sing, and that feeling honest, is top priority. And it wasn't always like that. Like when you started performing, sometimes it's like, with a range, there's a limit to how much you want to be in the high register. Because, I don't know, I guess I'm trying to say that, like,
I mean, you wanted...
just because you can go there doesn't mean you should all the time.
Right.
And I think that took me
You don't want to be Mariah Carey.
Right. Unless you can be. Right. And I think that took a little bit for me to appreciate.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things where...
To use your forces for good instead of evil, let's say.
Right. Not to tire people's ears.
Yeah.
But listening to my favorite singers, like, that's the education there. Like, you kind of listen to where they go and, keeping it natural. Keeping it...
Well, it works.
Thanks.
And we'd awake in the middle of the night to drink good health to the following day. Now I can't sleep on my side anymore, 'cause all I want is your hair in my mouth anymore. Baby, I can't sleep on my side anymore, 'cause all I want is your hair in my mouth.
I want to talk about the song Ulterior Motives. This one might be my favorite song. I'm not quite sure why yet. I just keep coming back to it.
I'm so glad to hear that.
First of all, you are the second one of my recent guests that have written songs instructing us to call our mothers, which is pretty good advice.
What was the other one? Do you remember?
Boy Golden. He's a performer out of Canada. I'll tip you off to the song after. It's a great tune. Your lyrics often have interesting bits of humor in them. I read that you are a fan of Loudon Wainwright. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I love his writing. He could like twist a common phrase just perfectly sideways, right? To kind of grab your brain and make you think and be like, yes, I know what he means there. And it's funny, right?
Yeah.
So your line here in this song, he ain't looking out for you. He's flipping the scripture to do the things he wants to do. That really caught my ear and made me think of like a Loudon kind of slight turn of a common phrase. So can you talk about this song maybe in the context of using humor as a lyrical device?
Yeah. I think that was a driving force for why I ever took the time to work on this song, was just to have a little fun.
Okay.
And I think it ended up kind of being like a cautionary tale, or not, it's not really a story, but like little snippets or vignettes. As you age, and I guess I should say as you mature, as I matured, starting to see things, you start to pick up on things like capitalism and little tactics that are used to influence other people's decisions.
Yeah.
And that can be like really frustrating to sit with. And so you just have to laugh at it and try to be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess trying to make sense of this one is hard to convey. Other than that, there's a feeling of truth inside of everyone, I think. And this song for me was just like sort of recognizing these scenarios where I didn't feel that and didn't feel that truth, and kind of calling those out. And sometimes all you need to do is, if you're fortunate to be able to call your mom,
right,
realign, even if you're asking for money. Being honest is going to go a long way.
Yes. My daughters and her band are crashing downstairs. I hope she's listening. They should call their parents all the time.
Yes.
Call your mother. Make sure she knows you love her well. The money is never gonna lend itself. Don't beat around the bushes. Pick up the phone and make the call. He ain't your brother. He ain't looking out for you. He's flipping the scripture to do the things that he wants to do. Say all you need is love. How come you don't wanna ball? We're talking ulterior motives coming up from under the bridge, and the air ain't often clean over top the dirty water. Get your shit together, make a request you can feel in your heart. 'Cause I know that you know, I know what it is that you want.
Well, all right, Brian, I've really enjoyed this time. I got one more question, kind of a bigger picture question for you. You've been at this for a while now, writing songs since high school. Is there something or things you think you've gotten better at, or maybe something you are working towards getting better at as a creative person? We've kind of hit on some of those things, but does anything strike you now?
I think I'm trying to just appreciate the opportunities that the band is getting to play music around the country, meet some really amazing musicians and sound crews, and like just the people you meet doing this are to me, they're heroes. All of them. Just make everyone in live music production and making music,
Podcasting.
yes, sharing the music, sharing the songs, appreciating them out loud. Seriously, that's the village it takes to make live music louder. I'm just really grateful to be part of it.
And enjoying the moment that you're in.
Right. if anything's gonna be beneficial for my songwriting, which is a selfish endeavor to some degree, it's gonna be appreciating those relationships and meeting people who are all in it for the right reasons of just sharing music. And so
you're about to go on the road with Shaky Graves. You're telling me before. That's a perfect example of someone that's
oh my gosh,
fascinating, creative person, right?
Yeah. Got to meet him last night. And he was such a sweet guy, and the whole band, really sweet people. Their performance was electric. And I'm so excited to see it for like 7 nights in a row.
Awesome. All right, Ryan, thanks so much for taking the time. I know everybody's so busy this week, so I appreciate your taking this time out to spend this time with us, and I hope you have a great rest of your week here in Austin.
Thanks, Mike. It's been fun talking to you.
Call your mother. Call your mother. Call your mother. Call your mom. Call your mom.